Welcome to Syntax, episode 778. This is the 11 Habits of Highly Effective Developers. This is actually a show we did maybe 6 years ago. And I was looking through a list of our top shows over the years. And this is actually one we did on YouTube 6 years ago. And it did really well. And I thought, you know what? The quality of that was not very good, but the content of that was excellent. And I'm curious to see if our 6 years later, if our thoughts are still the same of these things. So we're going to go through 11 habits of highly effective developers and explain our thoughts behind each of them and how you can sort of level up your career and become a better developer. My name is Wes. I'm a developer from Canada. With me, as always, is Mr. Scott Tolinsky. We are brought to you by Sentry. You're going to check it out, Sentry.io. We were just talking on the last recording about docs that have good context. One thing Sentry does is if you got a script tag and you want to implement it, you got to pass your API key. Well, the copy paste has your API key in it, and you can click on it and it will give you a list of all of your different projects in Sentry. Like I have the syntax one, I have one for my Node backend, I have one from a tutorial I've done, and you can just click on it and it'll swap it out for you. It's awesome. So check it out, sentry.io/syntax. How you doing, Scott?
Hey, doing good. It is crazy windy here in Denver. There are down branches everywhere. Man, the wind is unreal. So if a tree falls on my office in the middle of this recording, I guess just hope that it does not land on my head because we got big old trees right above me right here. Just they're rocking, man. It's crazy. So yeah, we were actually walking to our kids' soccer practice yesterday, and there were so many. We were just stepping over giant branches because it was this windy yesterday too. We're just stepping over giant branches. And I'm just I hope one of these does not fall on my head while I'm walking to practice here. So hey, I'm doing good, man. It's just I'm getting blown away by the wind. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Ready to rock on these habits. So the first one we have here is habit number 1 is you understand stakeholder and business goals. So a good developer understands all of the pieces of actually writing software and how to contribute to those types of things and how to architect software. But I think a great developer can go one step further and understand, why are we doing this type of thing? Not only am I concerned with making this code work really well, but I'm concerned with the end user that is using this application. The business goals that we have to do with this application are X, Y, and Z. So if I can have context into who cares about this, right? That's a fancy way of saying who the stakeholders are and how is this business actually trying to make money? I've talked many times in the past of when I used to build websites as a freelancer, I would talk to the users, A, yes, about the tech that we'd use, but B, what do you do? What's your end game? Are you trying to use this website to get more leads? Are you trying to show up in Google? Are you trying to provide information to people who are visiting it? What are they looking for when they visit your website? So understanding the larger picture, I think, is a extremely useful habit.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about this in a recent episode, 754, how to level up your career. We talked about needing to understand stakeholders and business goals, but you might be wondering about why in particular that matters to the developer. That's somebody else's job. I'm the developer. I just push the code out. I think it distinctly matters with not only the care, but maybe the direction and handling of the user experiences that you're coding up. If the goal of this thing is to bring delight, or if it's to feel very smooth and professional, you want to be a good developer and account for those UI things regardless, right? You want the experience to feel good. But if you understand that this is of the highest importance, that this thing feels and looks pristine when you're using it, because of these following business goals, then you might take a different approach to some of that user interface programming. But more importantly, you're going to be motivated to work on these things in a different way, but you'll also be able to accomplish the goals of the stakeholders and the business goals, and it's going to make you look really good professionally. So you'll do better work if you understand the goals. You'll have context for the code that you're writing and why it matters. And ultimately, I think it's just going to make you look good in the eyes of your management.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are really, I do got to say this because I know we talked about this a little bit before. Some people are a little cynical about all that stuff. And I understand being cynical about a crappy job or, feeling maybe potentially exploited by your crappy job. But I think there is a sweet spot there of when you have respect within your organization, it is a good thing to I guess not like go above and beyond, but to understand the bigger picture here and be a different kind of impact maker for your team. Next one is habit number 2. You're always curious and always learning. And this is something that is hard to cultivate, but I think it really can be solved through motivation, understanding what things get you going about web development. What do I like building? Me personally, I like building little tools for myself. I like building cool little JavaScript things. I like building neat CSS, kind of working with new APIs, new technologies. So to be curious and always learning for me involves really watering that. Like if I'm a plant, I'm watering those skills all the time because those are the things that I really truly enjoy about this stuff. And it keeps me curious and it keeps me always learning. The moment that you really start to fall back into the same thing all the time, every time, you can get stuck doing the same thing for the rest of your career,
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're the cold fusion guy at the place that's running a cold fusion app.
Although I think some of those Cold Fusion devs are probably making bank right now.
Sure. That's what you want to do. Maybe that's what you're learning about. Maybe you're learning about the intricacies about those other platforms. It all depends on what gets you going.
The guys that are doing that are the ones that know the ins and outs of it. But like this industry is always changing. It's never going to slow down. And I think, at least for me, one of the big anti-burnout things is constantly learning new things, constantly checking things out. It can be a little bit overwhelming, I think, at points where everything is always new and you just want it to slow down. But I think what we're trying to emphasize here is that like the curiousness of how does this work? How, like when we were at React Miami, it's 11 p.m. at night and we're trying to figure out how the McDonald's order screens are working, which we posted on Twitter. We got some really good feedback as to apparently it's running on Silverlight. But like those questions are always turning over in my mind is, what is this running on? How is this working? What is somebody using to complete this task? And I think that's a very great habit to have.
Absolutely.
Next habit we have, number 3, is you have an open mind about new technology. So there is sort of 2 extremes you can go to in this whole world of web development. It is jumping on every new shiny thing ever imaginable, only to see people realize maybe that wasn't such a good idea and switch away from it. And then the other side is just never taking on anything because new stuff is crappy. And these hipster developers are just trying to make more problems for themselves and can't imagine why we want to use that. And I think there's a very good balance sort of in between where you understand there is new technology. And if your initial reaction to everything new is that's a bad idea, I've certainly been there in many times in my life where you see a new approach to writing something or a new, like when React was announced, everybody thought it was a stupid idea. A lot of people still think it's a stupid idea, but poo-pooing it right out of the gate is not a very good habit to have. And at least saying, that's interesting. Some developer had an idea as to how to approach this problem. Let me hear them out. Let me explore this technology. Let me understand what it's all about. I may disagree with it. That's totally fine. But having an open mind to sort of say, other people may have other ideas that I might not have thought of is, again, very successful habit.
Yeah. I have a note here that things exist for a reason. People don't just make things for no reason. Usually, especially smart people who have been in this industry a long time. So if there's certain people that have already created things that are very effective and they create something new and you're looking at this like, I don't know why you'd need this. Maybe the issue is with how you're approaching it or thinking it. I mean, we just had Johannes on to talk about effect. And I was looking at effect.ts or effect.website, I believe is their actual website. And the first time I looked at effect, I said, I don't get why I need this. This seems like a lot of work. Then actually getting some time with it and working in languages and things that was emulating, I was like, oh yeah, I really see what they're trying to do here with effect. But at first glance, I look at the code and it looks foreign to me. And the first thing you say is, I don't know what this is. I must
Yeah,
not
it looks
like
like
it.
garbage, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's not the thing I'm used to looking at, therefore it's bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same reaction with a lot of things. Zod, I ended up really liking Zod. Drizzle, I ended up really liking Drizzle. It is just, it's not that I'm a bad take machine or something like that.
Yeah.
It's that, again, when you don't understand things, it's really easy to look at them from a perspective of that it's maybe perhaps not what I need.
Yes.
It's tough.
I get this a lot. Whenever I post anything new about CSS
Yes.
on Twitter, I get flooded with comments of people being like, CSS was a mistake, it's garbage. And just because you don't understand what it does, like a complex selector, and people are like, this is awful. Just because you don't understand what it's doing because you haven't learned it yet doesn't mean it is bad. Again, it might be bad. It might be
Yeah.
a confusing way to do it. But if your initial reaction is, I don't understand it, therefore it's garbage, I don't think that's a sign of not a very good developer.
Yes, it's a sign of a developer who will lack professional growth in their what they're working in. Habit number 4: you ask for help. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of curiosity. It's a sign of you have problems that you've created, or perhaps that you've been assigned to fix that someone else created, and you could be out to lunch on where to even go from this. Asking for help is one of those things that can save you a whole lot of time. I know this. I don't want to ask for help. Oftentimes, the amount of times Courtney will tell me to call someone and I will say, no, I got it. Let me do it. It's a classic. That's like a classic marriage joke. I do not need to ask for directions. I know where to go. You don't always know where to go. Asking for directions can save you hours or days. Now, sometimes it's good to not ask for help because you can pick up a lot of things on the way. But if you're totally in the dark, you're not going to have suddenly everything be illuminated right away for no reason. So asking for help, especially for somebody that you know and trust their opinion of, is a great thing. There's so many times I'm blessed that I have the resource of Wes Boss to ping and say, hey, is this a terrible idea? And sometimes you just say, you'll respond back like, why is this different than this? And I'll say, gosh darn it, he got me. He's right. It's not any different than this. What was I thinking? So yeah, it's great. Ask for help.
I find that one of the biggest benefits to me of asking for help is, okay, it's a quick fix to this type of thing. But the other huge benefit is sometimes people who are not in it as you are, and they're like 6 things step back, sometimes they can ask questions that are like, didn't even think about that, you know? Sometimes it's like, you don't understand that I'm in this very obtuse like set of things, and like, no, I'm not going to change the entire language for this one problem that I'm trying to solve. But often it's like, hey, maybe if you approach this in a different way, take 2 steps back, then it's a little bit more helpful. And that brings us to the next habit 5, which is you help others. So when somebody is asking for help, often some of the best help I've got is people are they ask good questions and trying to understand kind of where you're at. And that's really good rubber duck debugging and whatnot. And they will try to help. They'll ask questions like that are a bit step back, which is good as well, but they'll also try to understand the context for where you're at as well, instead of trying to say, scrap that, use this entire totally set of different libraries and languages and whatnot, which is not helpful as well. So I think that if you want to grow as a software developer, helping others through the things that they are struggling with is a great way to sort of grow. And I've learned a whole lot teaching in person. I spent many of my early years on Stack Overflow. I spent many of my early years in IRC channels. Obviously, I have my own massive Slack room that people are asking questions all day long in. Being able to put yourself in their shoes, understand where things are being frustrating is a huge growth opportunity for you as a software developer.
I absolutely totally agree on this. I think me personally, I got, my start in this regard. Like you said, IRC was like a big one. You kind of see the way other people are helping or teaching or anything in IRC. And if somebody asks a question, I remember being a young enough developer, somebody asks a question and I have this unique piece of knowledge, or it's maybe not unique and I'm just the guy who's there. I couldn't type fast enough to get them the answer because it was like, that's a little bit of like nerd clout being able to give answers in this way. But also, I guess that's what the whole premise of Stack Overflow really was. But helping others, it can give you more experience in application stacks that aren't your own. Everybody does things just a little bit differently. My favorite thing when helping others is if somebody comes to me with a reproduction or like potentially, here's a good one in the Svelte world, they have the Svelte REPL where you can share and quickly share code examples. Somebody comes onto the Svelte Discord with a REPL of the issue they're having, I can solve that thing in no time. That's like the sweet spot. So if somebody's coming in with real code, it's easy to use, it's easy to test out. Help them, man. Give that muscle a little bit of a flex there, and not just for nerd cloud or anything like that, but to get your own brain out of your own code. I do think that is something that we don't do often enough. You're very comfortable in your own code. You're very
Mm-hmm.
comfortable sitting on the couch with your muscle memory for all the files you need to go to and the CSS classes are there. But then you go into somebody else's home and everything is totally foreign. The food that their mom makes is very different than the food that your mom made. Do you remember doing that, going over to somebody's house and their parents made some bad food or something? Definitely a thing.
Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to think if I ever had a situation like that. A lot of my friends had really good food. I would always
Okay.
love going over to their house. I remember the first time I went to my buddy's house who was like Greek, and they had
Mm.
like chicken drumsticks, and like I had never eaten it like off the bone like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And like that was a treat. I don't know why that one specifically sticks out in my mind, but I remember showing my kids how to eat a drumstick like that when they were young. They're like, yeah, this is awesome. We're like, right off the bone.
Yeah, Neanderthal style, for sure.
The next habit number 6 is you have a problem solver mentality. And this kind of breaks down into a few parts. First of all, I think what Scott was just saying is being able to distill it down into the actual problem. Like Scott said, like sometimes you have this huge application and you have a problem, and it's very hard to ask for help when you have all of these moving pieces. Like the other day, I had an issue with my Node.js stack. I have, I think, 3 different servers to run my course platform, and I proxied them all through a single Caddy server. And then I was tunneling them from my local Caddy server through a Cloudflare tunnel so that
Hmm.
I could get them publicly exposed because I was testing Apple Pay. And if you use Apple Pay, it has to be on a public domain that is verified. So I was using Cloudflare tunnels to proxy that through. So I have this like fairly large thing where it's like I have my 3 local node servers, a Caddy server that also proxies HTTPS, so like it makes its own certs, and then I have Cloudflare tunnels. And I was like, does anyone had like an issue? Sometimes it's just like, oh yeah, I've had that, fix it. And like I could not figure it out. So I just had to like slowly distill it down into, I took the whole node application server out of the context and I replicated the issue with just a Caddy server and a Cloudflare tunnel. And then I got it small enough where I could like
Mm.
give it to somebody else from Cloudflare who was helping me, and then they could then pick it up from there. But that like being able to distill is such a huge skill in my opinion.
Yes. Being able to take a step back and solve problems in a less stressed way will really, really help you. It'll help you like you said, deconstruct what you're working on, being able to find even inventive or creative ways to solve those problems. So many people, they want to go to perhaps I'm going to use the console log or the debugger or like the tools that we know, but they don't ever think like, what are the less conventional methods of debugging? I'm just going to comment everything out and start
Yeah.
commenting things in until it works again. That works. But just being able to be creative in trying to solve these problems. It's one thing that like my daughter is really into puzzles, right? That's all she asks for her birthday. She loves puzzles. She'll do 5 or 6 puzzles back to back. And I think this girl's going to be a great engineer because she loves taking a situation and seeing a jumbled mess and then figuring out what the picture is. And I think that's something that developers maybe don't do enough is we don't look at our job as being essentially professional puzzle solvers. I am a puzzle solver. That is
Hmm.
what I do in my job. Typically, I have a puzzle. It's a UI that needs built. It's a bug that's coming about, or I'm doing something really wild and I have a general idea of the outcome. Like I have a finished picture of what this finished puzzle will look like, and I have a whole lot of pieces, and I need to just put this thing together and figure out exactly what's going on. So being able to, one, keep your cool when there are problems, but two,
Yeah.
being able to take a minute to take a bigger picture and think about this puzzle or this problem, break it down, solve this problem. And not only that, I think be interested enough or excited enough to do that.
That's a big one. So I have a little example here. I'll show the video. My mom bought this light the other day at a thrift store, and it's like one of these little table lights, and you touch the top,
Yeah,
and
cool. Yeah.
it turns on. And she's like, "Hey, I bought it. It was $2, and it doesn't work." And she's like, "I plugged it in for a whole day, and nothing happened." And for a lot of people, like that's the extent of their problem solving. Plugged it in. I sometimes you even get a restart out of these people, and that's the extent of it. So, like, what do? Well, I open it up and I try to break it down into all the different components, right? So, first of all, I tested the battery and I charged the whole battery. So, take the battery out of the picture, right? Or no, I didn't even charge the battery. I took the battery out and I brought in an external power supply. So like I
Mm.
got that. And then what else did I do? And then I put power directly to the LED lights and they turned on. Okay, so that's not the LEDs, it's not the battery. And then I brought it like into the board that turns it on. And instead of touching it, I just shorted the 2 wires together as if I were touching it. And that turned it on. Oh, okay. So it's obviously an issue with whatever it is to turn it on right here. It's a capacitive. And then I went into YouTube and started researching it. So like, I feel like doing that in other aspects of my life, not just coding, helps me in my coding as well, because the more I fix things, the more I break down something into its smaller pieces, I feel like I also get better at it in my software dev.
It is wild how related those skills end up being. It is really one of those things where you don't necessarily realize what you're doing is software development adjacent until you take that bigger picture look. Heck, playing Factorio or any of those like games that are building systems and networks and stuff like that. You are doing software development. You are solving a problem, and those skills will come in handy no matter what you're doing. You in particular, Wes, have really opened my brain about solving things that aren't software related, because in my life I would typically in the past have been like, all right, software, I got this, it's Unix, I know this,
Hmm.
but like if I were to look at my leaf blower or my chainsaw or something like that and it stopped working, I would be like, I don't know. Now, after seeing you open up everything, I just start
Yeah.
opening stuff up. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'll open it up and just look for things that don't look right, capacitors or who knows what, right?
Yeah. Often you throw it in the, like I always say, worst case, you throw it in the F it bucket or
Yeah.
you bring it to someone who does know what they're doing. But you can always learn a thing or two opening it up.
Yeah, totally. If it's already broken,
Yeah.
that's
What are you going to
not
do?
a bad
Break it
place to
more?
start. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. What are you going to do? Break it for?
Well, kind of, yeah, but
Yeah, right.
at least
Yeah,
it's
that's
fun.
frequently me. Yeah, this my biggest thing, Wes, is I lose patience when things don't open. You know, like you have like those like plastic connectors
Oh,
sometimes. I'm like the king of being like rah, just like
oh my gosh.
hulking it open and then regretting it.
Can I tell
Uh,
you the other day? So last season I bought this like hose reel from Home Depot,
mm,
and it like you pull it and it winds itself back up. And it was
I got
I
one of
bought the
those.
like
Yeah.
$25 one, and I was like, this probably won't last. Awful reviews, but it was on sale for $25. I was like, I'm gonna get it, and it was great. I loved it. And then I accidentally pulled it too far, and the whole hose came out. And I was like, this is not going to go well, because the one
Oh,
thing that I hate taking apart is anything with springs.
oh
And
yeah.
so I start opening it up, trying to take it apart, and I just start peeling it open. All of a sudden I hear, and the whole spring became unwound. And I took the whole thing and
Threw
hucked
it in
it
the
into the,
trash.
no, I cut the good parts
Oh.
off, the like hose ends and
Oh,
whatnot. And then
okay.
I
Okay.
hucked
Yeah,
it
yeah.
into the garbage, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
bought a good quality one.
That is funny. I have one of those too. They rule. If you're out there and you're wondering if this is
So good.
something that's good for you, I got one on Amazon Prime Day for super cheap, and it's held up. It's been really nice. Yeah, on your thing about springs, Wes, springs are the worst. Um, Opening video game controllers or anything like that, yeah, I'll never get
Oh
those back
yeah.
together. That would actually be funny if computers had springs inside of them. That would make me not want to open them. Next one is habit number 7. You have fun with what you do. I have fun solving problems. We've talked about that already several times in this episode. I really do have fun looking at a tangled mess of wires, pulling them out one by one, rewiring them all, having it look pretty when I'm done with it, leaving comments, not necessarily writing tests, but I have fun doing these things that are I don't know. Other people might look at a wall of code and say, "Man, that looks daunting," or "That looks boring," maybe. But for me, I have so much joy out of solving the problems. The code is, supplementary to that. My joy comes from getting and creating things, having the freedom, the ability to just create. And to me, having that joy really pushes me through being able to do so many things that I don't get joy from. I'm building a video recording app. There is not a lot of joy in some of the minutia of these APIs. But when I actually got a 10-second video recorded,
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I did it. That's cool. I got something out of this. And we hear this from Randy all the time. Our producer is really cool that you guys can just make, you come up with an idea and you just say, hey, I can
You can
make
just
that.
make it. Yeah.
And that's where the joy for me comes in.
Yeah, we've done an episode on just like demos a couple of weeks ago, and just building little things for the sake of building little things, and that is super fun. I often think back to one of the first talks I did over 10 years ago. I was detailing webcam access, and I was showing how you could write the webcam to a canvas element, and then once it's in a canvas element, you can jumble the pixels on the canvas element to do whatever you want. So I did an example where I was just like blocking it into a 3x3 square and then randomizing where the pieces of the camera went. And some guy yelled out in the middle of my talk, "When would you ever use that?" And I think about that all the time, because like this poor guy cannot see, A, I'm having fun, but B, I was learning and explaining how the process of getting a video feed, writing it to canvas, and then once it's in canvas, you can take blocks of pixels out by their width and height and move them to other parts of the canvas. And you can essentially just like make your own little photo editing application, or apply filters to a video stream on canvas. And I don't know why it is. I often, first of all, that's an extremely rude thing to do when you're
Yeah, don't do
when
that.
you're giving a talk.
Don't do that.
This poor guys, I'm up there, like I'm kind of nervous. One of my very first talks, and you just yell out in the middle of a talk, "When would you ever use that?" But like also, if you cannot see past just like this is a purely functional reason why I need to do something, and the benefits of just exploring code and new features, then I don't think that is not a very good habit of developer.
Yeah, if I were to look at many of the things that I've done for fun that have ended up being really great learning experiences, if I would have taken a second to say, when would you actually use that? I would have not done most of them. And I would have missed out on a lot of like valuable insight that I gained. Whether or not that valuable insight, made me a better developer. I mean, I would say it did definitively, but like I think you do miss out on quite a bit by not just following that joy.
Next habit we have here, number 8, is you understand work-life balance. Burnout is a huge thing in our industry where you can love what you do. You can go a little bit too hard on what you do, and you can start to hate what you do. So understanding both that there are ups and downs in your career. There's certainly times in my career where I have wanted to just go, 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 go all the time. And there's other times in my career where I've just wanted to put in my day and not think about it at night. And I think that's totally fine. Sometimes you see people with these GitHubs where it's just a wall of green for 4 years and then boom, nothing, and you often wonder, what happened there? Like did they crash really hard? And it's often kind of unfortunate. So understanding that in order to do your best, you need to be mindful of, am I burning out? Am I getting sick of this thing? Because the scariest thing to me ever is to grow to hate what you do for a living.
Yeah, you don't want to get there. That's firmly in burnout mode. And the way I like to think about this is like, there's like some video games, like even like kind of cheesy, goofy ones where, like a Mario Party mini game or something, where you hit the gas button. But the reason why you don't just hold the gas button the whole time is because maybe there's like an engine temperature or something like that. And that will get past the limit, and then you'll spin out and everybody will pass you. Like that to me feels like a major metaphor for burnout in web development or any kind of career whatsoever. Yeah, you can hold down the throttle as long as you want, but it will potentially overload your engine at some point and you're going to spin out. And who knows if you're ever going to get back up to speed. You're just going to be waiting, right? So honestly, I think that work-life balance is a huge one. One thing for me is that I make time for physical activity almost every day. I work out like 6 days a week. I make time for family, 5 o'clock, computer shut off, closes my computer, and I don't reopen it typically until the kids are asleep, if I reopen it at all. I feel like these things are just very important to keep yourself in maintenance for working for longer. And it's not like, oh, you can get more accomplished and blah, blah, blah. But like I said, I find joy in this stuff. And I think that is a superpower, having joy in this stuff. And if you lose that joy, if you lose that motivation to work on things, then, it's hard to get that back. You have to then put in the effort to find ways to reclaim that. So for me personally, if you understand work-life balance, you can understand when you're getting overloaded or what you can do to decrease that overload from the get-go. Not something that you're trying to do after you're already burnt out, but from the get-go. I think you're going to set yourself up for much greater success. Habit number 9, you are empathetic to your coworkers and users. Guess what? Every single person in this world has got something going on. Everybody's got stuff going on. We're all busy. We all have negative things. We all have positive things. We all got crazy, hectic things, schedule things, whatever. Everybody's got something. So keep that in mind. When somebody leaves you a rude tweet or somebody sends you an email or something, maybe they're stressed out. Maybe they just had some instance of something happened in their life and they're taking it out on you. So you could take it back out on them, or you can maybe think about, hey, this person is being a jackass. I wonder why that is.
People hurt.
Hurt people hurt, Wes. That's so true. And you know what? Like, I think, there can be one thing from a drive by, FU on a a YouTube comment or something. But it's different when it comes to the people, one, you're trying to support, your users, right? Those are your users, the people using your thing. If they're having a hard time with it, they're frustrated, remember that, hey, that's kind of your fault. It's important to know that, like, their frustration, whether or not it's influenced from the outside or whatever, you are kind of responsible for making sure that they have a good experience. So understanding and
Yeah.
putting yourself in your user shoes, that can come from like dog fooding your applications. Using your applications is a good way to gain empathy for your users. If you use your application and it sucks, guess what? Your users think it sucks as well. Another one for your coworkers, these are the people that are going to support you beyond this project, beyond the next project. So you want your coworkers and you to understand that like everybody's got each other's back, and we all know that we all got stuff going on. So again, make sure that you have your coworkers back and you understand them and you understand what their motivations are and you work
Hmm.
to succeed in that.
I think this also goes to, if you think of who are the best or the developers behind some of the biggest open source projects out there. Like, I'm curious, I'm going to ask you, like, what do you think are the most joy to use pieces of JavaScript software out there right now?
JavaScript software. I don't know. We just did an episode on Pocket Base, and it's a joy to use. The UI is great. Everything
Yeah.
works. It's super smooth, and there's no like pain points for me. So that's like a big one, especially since we
Yeah.
just talked about it.
I would say probably like Svelte is there.
Yes.
Vite is under there. So if you think about like Rich Harris, Evan Yu behind these projects, yeah, they're amazing developers, but the reason why they are such good developers, and you often see them in GitHub issues or on Twitter being, understand. Oh, I see that you're frustrated with that. A big reason why Vite is where it's at is because Evan Yu is empathetic to people who were frustrated with Webpack, and he takes that empathy of understanding, yeah, this is hard to use. And he doesn't start running around saying skill issue at everybody, and
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
it builds some amazing software behind it. And I think that that's an example. Those developers are obviously next level because they are both good at writing the code, but also very empathetic to the people that are using this software. And it's not just oh yeah, it can be hard to write Webpack configs. It's, I understand what's going on here, and I
Hmm.
think that we can figure out how to do this and make it a little bit more of a joy to use.
Yeah. And you know what? The skill issue thing can be funny when it is like said tongue in cheek. But when it's
Certainly.
not said tongue in cheek, man, I don't get what you're trying to accomplish there. You're just trying to be a jerk, and I'm not down with that. So yeah.
Next habit is number 10. You pay attention to details. Some of the best software that is out there, some of the best pull request reviews I've gotten is somebody can catch possible issues, possible edge cases. There are so many spots where you can really goof up. And if you think about using a piece of software, some of the best software out there is just like, oh, that was really nice to use. That was really easy. And it's because the developers behind them or designers and whatnot as well pay attention to detail and a lot of the small little things. They take all the paper cuts out of using that piece of technology.
Yeah. Attention to detail. I think every major project that I know that succeeds with I guess Amazon. I was going to say with the exception of Amazon. Amazon has attention to detail, but they just prioritize different details than what I care about. But attention to detail is one of the reasons why Apple is a gazillion-dollar company, and one of the reasons why applications like SvelteKit work so well. They've paid attention to the things that you got to do. They pay attention to the small little things, and it works really well. Again, I just talked about Pocket Base a second ago, but there's a huge attention to detail there. In the UI design, there's a lot of considerations applied to anything where you should look for things. Things are just in the place that you're expecting it. So care. Care and have attention to what you're working on and
Hmm.
really care about it. You know, my brain has a hard time with this one, Wes. I'm going to be honest, because my my particular version of how my brain works is just get stuff out. And when I was a musician, I had a lot of musicians I mean, I'm still a musician, but when I was an actively recording musician, I had a lot of friends who would work on a song for months. It's one song. They would work on it for months. They would agonize over every little hit, every envelope, whatever. I'm like definitely more of I'll record 30 songs and then pick the one that's the least worse. That's always been my strategy. So attention to detail is hard for me, but I think it really matters.
Hmm. The Amazon one is really interesting to me. I just keep thinking about that since he said it, because
Yeah.
I think it kind of goes back to habit number one, which is understanding stakeholder and business goals.
Yes.
People love to rip on Amazon because their page speed score is awful, or because the UI is extremely cluttered,
Ugly.
and they'll often say like, oh yeah, you can have a bad page speed if you're the most trillion-dollar company, and I think obviously there's some stuff to that, but I also think that, go back to habit number one, understand stakeholder and
Totally.
business goals. They want to sell a whole bunch of stuff, and they want their users. As a user of Amazon, it's super easy to return stuff. The shipping is nice and fast. I can always get at whatever I want. I'm able to search and find what I'm looking for, and I think that's why it's that's the details that their developers and Amazon in general is paying attention to. And I know there's people probably fuming at me right now because Amazon is evil and you should pay attention to the things that you care about, but I think they understand what's
Yeah, it
going
wasn't
on.
Amazon, weren't they one of the first ones, if not the first one, to understand that in a drop-down menu, your mouse path always isn't,
Yes.
in the direction. So they built the triangle so that your mouse could go in a more direct path without closing the hover navigation. So like they care about details. They just don't care about design details, I guess.
Yes.
It's like, yeah. Uh, the last one here, habit 11, you are part of the community. And community can be all kinds of things. It can be your local community. I think I did become a much better developer when I started attending the Southeast Michigan JavaScript meetup. It was like we had one JavaScript meetup at that time, and it was for all of Southeast Michigan. So, like, when I started being a part of that, I started being around my people, right? You're around your people. Everybody's like talking JavaScript and they're excited about it or they're interested about it. They're trying new things. They're just, they're there because they care. And being around your people, regardless of if it's an in-person thing or a Slack channel or Discord channel, can really make a huge impact on just how you feel about yourself, but it can put people in a place of like, oh, these people are doing this cool stuff. I bet I could do this cool stuff. We're in the same kind
Yeah.
of position here. And it gives you people to bounce ideas off of. It gives you inspiration. Being a part of a community is just endlessly advantageous for your career. And it's hard, I get it. If you're an introvert type of person, you might not always want to show up to this stuff and talk to the people. But give it a try. Show up to a
Yeah.
couple,
It doesn't even need to be in person as well. Like
Right.
you think about like where is the web development community, and there are lots of places where the community is. Obviously, like Twitter is one of them, but you might not like Twitter, so you might find there's plenty of Facebook groups, there's forums out there, there's lots of Discord channels on there. It's even like the YouTube comments or listening to this podcast. A lot of people say, I feel like I'm part of the community because I'm keeping up to date, and I tune in and hear you guys talk about web development every single week. Just finding that piece is great for staying up to date, bouncing ideas off people, getting help when you need it, just having some people to sort of talk to about this stuff. And it's extremely energizing. I can't tell you, every time I come back from a conference, I just go, like that was awesome. There's so many cool conversations and being able to talk to people that are in our community.
Yeah, conference is one of those things that, again, if you can force yourself to just walk into a circle of people and just introduce yourself or whatever, man, you can get so much out of that, even just talking about non-tech related stuff. So I do definitely think being a part of a community is just a great thing for so many reasons, even as an introvert. Cool. So that was 11 habits of highly effective developers. Which of these habits are your best habit? Which of these things do you succeed in really well, and which of these do you not succeed in? What are some habits that you cultivate in your life that lead you to becoming a better developer? We want to know all these things. Head on over to youtube.com/@syntaxfm. Leave a comment on this video of any of that stuff.
To
We
be
want
part
to
of the
hear from you.
community.
Be a part of the community. It is very funny. I replied from my personal YouTube account to a comment on one of our videos recently, and someone said, "Oh, hey, it's you, Scott. I was thinking that I was just talking to somebody in the community." Hey, you are. I'm in the community. We're all a part of this community.
We are the community. So
Yes.
hold on. I'm curious now what do you think your top habit is?
My top habit is my golden retriever excitement for curiosity and new things. If there's one thing that could lead me more
Is
than
that
anything,
number 2?
that is number 2. You're curious and always learning. I can get distracted. I can, lose track of some of the bigger details. I solve problems really well. Yes. I occasionally do not ask for help. Occasionally. But the one thing that I definitely do is that I'm always super curious about things, why they work. I'm diving into trying to figure out solutions, even if they've already been solved before, because I want to see what my brain can come up with. Maybe it's something different than what other people,
I think I'm the same. Habit number 2, or a problem solver mentality, but I think highly habit number 2 as well.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's probably good for this podcast. Right?
Yes, I agree. Let's get into some shame or sick picks. I have a sick pick today, and it's something that you sick picked, I think, 2 years ago. It's a Ninja Warrior obstacle course for your kids. So this is essentially 2 slack lines or 2 really long ratchet straps that you string between trees. And then there's a whole bunch of like little attachments for swinging from one to another or climbing up a ladder, or there's all kinds of different attachments you can get for it. And my kids have been they went on one at a friend's about a year ago, and they've been asking for it for quite a while. And this year we thought all right, we're 2 really good trees right behind our house. Let's do it. And they are on it. We got it about 2 months ago, and they are on it every single night, playing on it, swinging on it, learning new games on it. And it's $100, which is, I feel like it's cheaper than building a tree house or something like that. And I feel like you can get a lot of really good fun out of it. So I highly recommend it if you've got young kids.
Yes. And if you are an adventurous adult, they can hold your weight. I try to do it really slinks down for us because it's high up. When I get on it, it really, pulls it down. But let me tell you, I've completed that course. I've completed that course several times. My kids can't get past the 6th object. And guess what? I got all of them.
We ended up doing ours at an angle for the top one, so that it gets progressively harder. Because our youngest kids are super short, and then the oldest one is I can reach everything. So we've just made it progressively harder as it goes on.
Yes. I want to get more attachments for mine. I got mine at Costco. So this is the type of thing you can get at Costco or Amazon or anywhere. But it is. Your kids will use it for hours and hours and hours. They will go nuts on it. And all you need is a couple of trees. My sick pick is going to be these little solar lanterns. Like many other people, I have really loved having LEDs in my backyard for fairy lights, drop-down lights, whatever. Courtney bought these things that are essentially like a glass ball with a solar panel with a rechargeable battery that's hooked up to an LED kind of fairy strip. And they don't need much light, I'll tell you that, because we have a lot of trees. They still do just fine. We hung maybe about, 8 of these on trees around our backyard.
Oh, that's cool.
And it is just so nice. We leave them out all winter. They're fine. We don't even, any given time. We were just outside on the patio hanging out in our backyard the other night, and all the little fairy lights come on, and you're like, I feel like I'm in a gosh darn, fairy forest here. I feel like there's that part in Zelda where you're in a forest with all the stuff illuminated. I felt like that. It's pretty cool. So yeah, they're cheap. $33 for a pack of 2. Well, I guess that's not that cheap, but they're nice. They're glass, they're heavy, they'll last. And like I said, we leave them out all winter long, and just a really, really nice little thing.
Sweet. I'm just finishing up doing a whole bunch of landscape lighting in our backyard as well, so I'll have some future sick picks for that. But landscape, somebody called it something cool. Nightscaping, they called it.
Nightscaping, that's a cool name.
Nightscaping. Ooh, that's
Super
a fancy
cool name.
word for putting lights in your backyard.
I got to do the front yard for us. Our backyard has been nightscaped. I got to do the front yard.
Oh yeah, let me know. I figured it all out, so it's relatively easy to do. It's all low voltage, so it's not too scary.
I was gonna say we already have the wire for the backyard laid, and all I got to do is tap that, run it to the front yard. I'd connect it to the same timer, so it shouldn't be that hard.
There you go.
Famous last words. All right, shameless plugs. I'm going to shamelessly plug the Syntax YouTube channel. We've mentioned it a couple times in this episode, but we are doing big things on the Syntax YouTube channel. CJ just did a video on Drizzle. He did a video on Coolify, self-hosting, and he's just really, really amazing. Not only that, but we have the video podcast on here where Wes and I, you can see us. And, we just recorded an episode with Pocket Base at the time of recording this, and we showed code, folks. We're showing code. So if you want to see code, you want to see some stuff, head on over to youtube.com/@syntaxfm, and you can see what we look like. You can stop confusing the two of us.
Wicked. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will catch you later. Peace.